So you've probably heard of Christopher Nolan's new Odyssey movie. You know, the one that is star-studded and filmed for IMAX and getting a lot of flack online for how historically accurate it isn't. Costumes help anchor a story to the time it takes place. People should be able to look at a historical character and know at least roughly what era they're supposed to be from. People shouldn't be looking at a character and going, wait, is this the Odyssey or Robin Hood? Seriously, I raised an eyebrow when the first set photos leaked, and said eyebrow has only raised higher the more I see of the costumes. I don't claim to be an expert in ancient Greek culture. Most of my historical knowledge is based around the Victorian and Edwardian eras, but even I can tell you that this is not ancient Greek fashion. This is not ancient Greek fashion. This is not ancient Greek fashion. Not costume related, but this is not an ancient Greek or even Mycenaean ship. This is a Viking era ship, which the Viking era took place roughly 1400 years after the events of the Odyssey. And this, in the immortal words of Austen Land,
which historical era is this supposed to be from?
Honestly, they're not even good fantasy costumes. I've seen cosplayers and reenactors do better crafting in their basements and garages. And this is a trend we're seeing more and more in movies that are based off of historical eras and stories. Karolina Zabrowska did an in-depth video on these costumes and described the phenomenon quite well as the Bridgertonification of costumes. You see this in Bridgerton, you see this in the new Wuthering Heights movie, and now you see it in The Odyssey. We have costume designers that are taking stories that are well known and eras that have defined silhouettes and doing something totally out to lunch because they have a vision. I would argue, and I think a lot of people would argue, that fans would actually prefer to see costumes and hair that are truer to the era the story is set in, rather than something avant-garde and funky. In my opinion, most of these recent costumes just end up looking cheap and kinda tacky. So what would a woman like Penelope in ancient Greece actually have worn? There were two common types of garments worn by women: the longer sleeve option called the ionic chiton, or Chiton, depending on who you ask, and the essentially sleeveless option called the Doric chiton. There was an optional shorter overdress called a peplos, and there was a garment called the Himation, which was a drapey outer garment that essentially functioned like a wraparound cloak. Emphasis was on drape, lightweight layers, and flowy garments. Not structured like Anne Hathaway's red carpet-esque look here. Costuming rant aside, I had already planned to make an ionic chiton this year, so seeing these Odyssey costumes made me go, why don't I combine two things I enjoy? Sewing and venting about poor costume choices. Which brings us to where we are now. The ionic chiton is an unbelievably easy dress to make. It is literally just a tube of fabric with either buttons, brooches, or beads spaced along the top edge to make the shoulder and sleeve area. Since the fabric is going to be gathered in place, you want material that is lightweight, as heavy fabric will make the finished chiton look really bulky and not flowy. For this project, I am using a periwinkle cotton lawn, but historically it would have been made out of linen or a fine wool. I start by pinning together the vertical edges to make the tube. For width, I measured fingertip to fingertip, and for length, I'm going with a measurement from my shoulders to the floor. Then I backstitch all the way from top to bottom on both sides. To finish the seam edges, I trim down one side, and then fold the wider side to enclose both raw edges, and use felling stitches to secure them down. And since I don't have a pin or sewing clamp handy, my bottle of Hippocras makes for a rather aesthetic fabric anchor. Once it's a tube, we can hem the bottom edge. This just gets folded under twice and secured again with felling stitches. And we repeat for the top edge. To turn it from a tube into a chiton, we need something to join the top edges together. I am using these lovely gold pewter beads as they have a vaguely Grecian effect. I run strong silk thread back and forth between the two layers and add hidden knots to help everything stay in place. And now we are ready for an adventure. But before I show you the finished product, allow me to address the argument I've seen online that the Odyssey is mythology, therefore fiction, therefore we shouldn't have to commit to historical accuracy. Yes, it is mythology, but it was set in a real time, based on real cultures and real locations. And yes, archaeologists discovered the long believed to be fictional city of Troy. While complete 100% historical accuracy is something that no one can actually achieve, we can at least put in an effort. And I will show you in this reveal that it is possible to use anachronistic materials and still end up with an effect that gives the historical silhouette with a fantasy vibe. I wanted to include a himation as part of my finished look, and while looking for ideas, I pulled out this lovely purple and gold crepe fabric from my stash. Seeing as I was named after the biblical Lydia, the seller of purple, I decided it would make for a very fitting, regal, and flowy himation. Did they have sparkly purple and gold fabric in ancient Greece? No. So will this be entirely historically accurate? Obviously not. But it is still going to look good, and it will give the silhouette that I'm looking for, which really should be the end goal. So I hope you enjoyed this video. It's a little different from my regular content, maybe a tad more ranty than I usually get, but I was making the project anyway, and it's such an easy project. Anyone can do it. And again, those costumes are just so bad. But anyway, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more historical sewing meets fantasy vibes, please consider subscribing. And if you know someone who likes historical costuming or blockbuster movies or seamstresses ranting about bad movie costumes, please share this video around. And I will see you soon for more geekery meets history sewing adventures.
Fish heads, roly-poly fish heads. Fish heads, eat them up, yum.